Hey everyone, Ryan here on Strategy Simplified again. If you're looking for a coveted MBA internship at McKinsey, but you're not sure what the heck you should expect, listen in for today's podcast. We're going to break down the McKinsey application process. We're going to talk about the deadlines, what should you expect before you apply, after you apply. We're also going to give you a few quick tips for all those out there that procrastinate a little bit like myself in preparing, just to show that it can be done. So tune in and check out what we've got to say. I think it's going to be a good one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MBB deadlines discussion today. I think to start, I'll just kind of give a rundown on what exactly it is that we're going to talk about, and then we'll just dive right in. So the topic today is really going to be on deadlines. We're going to focus on McKinsey specifically because that's where I spent my summer, where I'll be going back after I finish my MBA. So to start, we'll talk about a little bit of the recent trends. So as some of you probably know, deadlines have shifted forward over the last several years, and just want to spend a brief moment talking about that. Then we'll jump right into the meat of the conversation, which is when do firms actually make decisions, and when is the actual deadline for submitting the application. So we'll get some insight into that and talk about what you should expect there. And then after and before you apply, what should you be expecting? So I know when I was in your shoes getting ready to apply, I didn't really know what to do after I sent my application off into the ether web. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll give some advice and tips on how you can get ready for the interview once you apply. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So I think to start, we'll talk a little bit about the deadline. So for starters here, the deadline for each MBA program is going to be unique, specifically for McKinsey. I think for target schools, the deadline is really shaking out to be anywhere from November 13th to November 29th of 2023. You'll need to check your school's recruiting portal to find the specific date on that, but November 13th through November 29th appears to be kind of the range for what we can expect in terms of the McKinsey deadline. If you're not at a target school, check with the firm for confirmation on their latest so you can have your application submitted. I think that some of that information is potentially available online, and some of that may just require you reaching out to recruiters or different contacts that you might have at the organization and seeing what they have to say. McKinsey specifically is going to be sending out interview invites to selected applicants really just a couple of days after the application deadlines. So what does that mean? First of all, if you're planning to apply on November 13th, for example, if that's your deadline, I think that you can expect your invite to come out as early as kind of that following Monday, right? So be prepared to know sooner rather than later, really, if you've got that interview invite. And if you do, it's obviously time to start getting ready. But thinking about the prep, what does that mean for prep, right? So I think what it means is you need to start prepping now, right away. Working through the cases, working through the behavioral or qualitative aspects of the interview. For McKinsey, would be called the PEI portion of the interview, really to start honing in on those case skills, those interview prep skills, and really kind of getting ready for game day, so to speak. And obviously the goal being that you can kind of peak on game day. So after you hit submit on your application, what should you really expect next? So I think that expectations and next steps are a little bit different, right? Let's start with kind of the next steps, maybe make a few recommendations on what can kind of situate you best for success. And we'll talk about what you should expect in terms of communications from the firm and kind of how they'll kind of shed information on the interview process. So as a next step, what I'd recommend first is reach out to your contacts and let them know that you applied. McKinsey consultants are excited that you've applied. If you've got alums from your school that are there, I think they're going to be, stoked to hear that, a future Darting grad, for example, is just submitted his or her application, could potentially be selected for an interview. They're going to be excited. They're going to be very congratulatory. They went through the same process you're going through. They know how stressful it can be, and they're just going to be excited. And frankly, selfishly as well, it's another touch point with those folks, right? It's another opportunity to build that relationship, to continue to reiterate your interest in the firm and show them how serious you are. This next point is very important. Keep casing. Keep prepping. Do not submit your application and wipe your hands and say, whew, now, I got to take a break. No, it's time to keep pressing, keep prepping cases, keep working on your PEIs or qualitative aspects of the interview. Just assume that you got the interview. Nobody wants to assume that they didn't get the interview, stop casing, and then find out they did and miss a few very important days of casework. So just keep going, keep working through the schedule, keep working through your process that you put together, and keep moving forward. Last, I think it's important also to take 24 hours and celebrate. Tell your roommates, if you have them, that you finally submitted your application. Email a couple of your favorite professors, let them know. It's a big deal to submit an application to these firms, and I think getting that first step in, which is submitting that application, is huge. And it's a stressful process, so I think you should take 24 hours and celebrate and just recognize what you've accomplished.
We'll be right back after this quick message. Are you having trouble getting your application reviewed or seen, or worse, your application's getting rejected as soon as you send it in? Are you having trouble conveying your story in a compelling way on your resume? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then we'd love to work with you on a resume and cover letter edit. Our MBB team edits 600 resumes and cover letters a year, and they know what works for consulting firms. We'll perform 2 rounds of really detailed and really personalized line-by-line edits on your resume and your cover letter. Check out the links in this episode's show notes to learn more. All right, let's get back to the show.
Now, importantly, McKinsey has a reputation in certain circles of being a little bit hard to read sometimes. And I think what's interesting about submitting the application for McKinsey is you're going to get a ton of congratulatory emails, a ton of responses in the week coming. And if you are selected for an interview, I think the coolest thing is they're so transparent. They're excited. They're throwing resources at you, sending McKinsey consultants to case with you, having senior partners reach out to you and talk to you about the firm and really shed insights on what it's like to work there, what it's like to interact with a McKinsey consulting team, what it's like to work on a McKinsey consulting study. So it's really exciting. And if you're selected for an interview, I think the first thing that you can expect is really just a ton of outreach from firm representatives, recruiters, and that really includes people all up and down kind of the hierarchical structure, from senior partner all the way down to, fellow associates that may have just graduated a year or two before you. If you're not selected for an interview, I think the first important thing to remember is that you should remain in contact with the people that you develop the strong connections with. This is the long game, remember. If you're a first-year MBA recruiting for an MBA internship in the summer, if you don't get that interview and McKinsey's one of your top firms, you're immediately thinking about second-year recruiting. So, remain in contact with your strong supporters in the firm. Let them know that you're going to XYZ firm in the summer once you do nail down an internship. Get excited about that. Tell them that you're excited about that, and just let them know that you remain interested, and just keep those communication lines open. The firm will likely reach out to you and tell you that you haven't been, the firm will reach out to you and tell you that you have not been selected. So you will know. It will not just be a waiting game where you're kind of off in the ether just hoping to hear something back. And McKinsey will be very transparent with you as well about second year recruiting. They will tell you, we're going to be back on campus. We'll be looking for full-time hires. Go enjoy your summer, learn a lot, and show us why you've developed into a consultant that now deserves to come to McKinsey next, So take those experiences that you're going to have over the summer and really enjoy them, and come back and be refreshed and ready to go for second year recruiting. And again, just stay in contact with with the firm representatives that you connected with the most. Now, thinking about the next step, which is, how do I prepare after being selected for an interview? So in theory, you should already be preparing. So you should have several cases under your belt. For some people, it'll be 5, 6, 7. Others that will ramp up very quickly, it may be as many as 15 or 20. Everybody's casing journey and preparation journey is a little bit different. But just know that in theory, you should be preparing. If you haven't, what do I do next? Well, to quickly prepare for upcoming interviews, I think there's a kind of a general outline that I can offer. So one, start with 10 to 20 market sizing questions. These are questions that you can do on your own. You can think through them. You can say them out loud and answer the questions and kind of walk through your frameworks and walk through how you would size these different markets. So that's an easy one for you to do on your own. I think next is working on actual cases. Immediately start getting cases in. And if you are selected for an interview, you need to prepare quickly. Try to get a minimum of 10 done. If you're only able to get 10, do 4 profitability, 4 market study, and 2 M&A. What we found is that these are some of the most common interview themes across the marketplace. So if you're able to cover these 10, if you're able to cover those 3 topics in a rough split of 40, 40, 20, like we just mentioned, over 10 cases, it's not perfect, but it should put you in a good position to hopefully become successful. Next, after you've done your 10 to 20 market sizing questions, you've worked through 10 different cases, you now should have a sample size large enough to identify areas of weakness that you can start working on. So now it's time to start drilling. Go on the Management Consultant website, find different drills and cases that we have in our case library with math problems on them that maybe you need to work on, and work on those. Look at different frameworks that come up in our cases. That way you can drill in your frameworks. Not very good at brainstorming or not structured during your brainstorm? Fine. Find a case that has some interesting brainstorming and drill those brainstorms. So the next question is, how do I do that? The thing that worked best for me whenever I was going through summer recruiting was to basically sit down and redo those cases from start to finish. So if I identified that I was not good at frameworks, right, I would find a case where I maybe didn't do such a good job on the framework, and I would redo that case by myself. And I would time myself the first time to do that framework in 2 minutes. And then I would look at it, compare it to what the answer was, see what I did well, what I maybe didn't do so well. Then I would come back with no time limit this time and try to just expand on that framework as much as I could. So really beat it to death and try to just figure out every possible way to put together a framework that fits for the particular topic at hand here. So those drills, just consistency. So last, I think one thing that's really important to point out here is really that this casing experience is very difficult, almost impossible to go through on your own. So what does that mean? That means you need casing partners. If you're in an MBA program, you obviously have access to a tremendous amount of peers that are also recruiting various management consulting groups. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to link up and do cases together and find case partners, case other folks. But what if you're running this journey on your own? How do you find resources? Well, you can work with an ex-MBB coach from Management Consultant today, and we provide real tailored insight and support. So what does that mean? It's people like yourselves just a few years later that have either worked or interned or both at a McKinsey Bain or BCG management consulting group. And they come to the table to work with you to give you real tailored insight and support. So as some of you may know, McKinsey cases are a little different than BCG. BCGs are a little different than Bains, and Bains are a little different than McKinseys, right? So if you have a target firm in mind, work with somebody that's been there before, that's gone through the case interviews and been successful there before, and can really guide you on your preparation and helping you understand how to get the most out of these opportunities to case with these different firms. And last but not least, just remember to breathe. We know that this is a super stressful time and that it feels like everything is riding on this one application, but don't forget that it's all going to work out in the end. You've been successful so far. You're going to keep being successful. Just remember to take time, relax, and breathe. And lastly, before we end, I would like to note as well that if we focused a lot of this conversation around McKinsey, but if you can check out in the show notes as well, we're going to have Bain and BCG's deadlines noted there. Also, similarly, if you're interested in working with a management consulted coach to do some of this casing prep with, please look in the show notes as well. We'll put a link in there for how you can contact us and get in touch with somebody. Thanks. Thanks for listening. Head to the show notes to learn more about the application process, the deadlines, and also MC's resume editing services, as well as the MC x MBB coaching services. Additionally, I know we talked a lot about McKinsey today, but if you're looking for some insight into Bain and BCG's application deadlines, check the show notes out for that as well. See you on the next episode.